Hello, Morongo Basin and listeners around the world online at Z107.7 FM.com. Here is the Z107.7 local news for Tuesday, December 19th, 2023. A 29 Palms woman was arrested on suspicion of domestic abuse while out on bail. Last Thursday, county sheriff's deputies assigned to 29 Palms contacted Latalia Hayes, 40, in the 5900 block of Regino Avenue in 29 Palms at around 2:15 p.m. The identity and status of the victim were not available. Deputies identified Hayes as the suspect in an incident of domestic abuse, and Hayes was found to be currently out on bail for an unrelated incident. Latalia Hayes was arrested on suspicion of inflicting corporal injury on a spouse, cohabitant, or date, and was booked into the West Valley Detention Center on $50,000 bail. She is expected to be arraigned this morning on felony charges related to the alleged domestic assault, with enhancements for committing a crime while out on bail. Hayes was arrested in 29 Palms in 2017 on suspicion of possessing drugs and stolen credit cards. The County Board of Supervisors meets this morning to consider a proposed glamping site near Pipes Canyon. The County Planning Commission refused to vote on the Flamingo 640 project, and the developer is bringing their appeal back to the supervisors at their 10 a.m. meeting today. Our local supervisor, Don Rao, discussed the status of the project with Gary Deneau on the Z107.7 Up Close show. She said,
There's a section of 640 acres that was purchased by a developer, and they want to do kind of high-end glamping, camping, resort type thing with a restaurant and some stuff there. So they went through the development process, which part of that entails a culmination at the Planning Commission for the Planning Commission to make a decision. Staff recommended approval of the project, and the Planning Commission, as far as I know, first time ever, said, we're not voting on this. They encouraged the developer to scale it down, to go back. So the developer said, I'm going to appeal the no decision to the Board of Supervisors. So they paid for the appeal. It is coming before the Board of Supervisors December 19th. We will have the Joshua Tree Government Center open for anyone in the basin who wants to come in and give their 3 minutes of input to the supervisors. And it's important because the Board of Supervisors has a couple of options. We can just accept the project as the applicant has applied, as staff recommended, even though it kind of skipped that Planning Commission level. We can just deny it outright, or we can kick it back to the Planning Commission and say, developer, go fix the scope of your scale to reduce it down, have it be something a little bit different, have the Planning Commission rehear it, and then bring it back to us.
You can participate in the meeting locally at the Bob Burke Government Center in Joshua Tree, where the meeting will be live streamed and public comment may be made via live video feed. The meeting begins at 10 a.m. Tomorrow, the 29 Palms Water District Board of Directors will gather for their monthly meeting. Reporter Heather Clisby has more.
On Wednesday evening, the 29 Palms Water District Board of Directors will meet to discuss water-related issues. The meeting will kick off with a presentation of the district's fiscal year 2022-2023 audited financial statements before turning to the annual election of officers. There will be a discussion to reallocate CIP budget line items, and the board will then hear a full update on the city's wastewater project. The remainder of the public meeting will consist of management reports on maintenance, water quality, and finance. The meeting begins at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, December 20th at 72401 Hatch Road in 29 Palms. Reporting for Z107.7, I'm Heather Clisby.
Tonight's meeting of the Yucca Valley Town Council has been canceled due to a lack of quorum. The Yucca Valley Town Council will reconvene in the new year. Stay tuned to Z107.7 for updates. The Yucca Valley Planning Commission will meet in special session tomorrow night to hold a public hearing on a 5-unit apartment complex proposed for 7120 Palo Alto Avenue. We'll have a closer look at that agenda tomorrow. Good news for military families. The basic allowance housing rates will be increased in 2024. The Department of Defense announced the 2024 Basic Allowance Housing Rates, or BAH rates, on Thursday, and say that they will increase by an average of 5.4%. BAH rates are part of military compensation packages for officers living in certain residential areas near military bases, and ensure that enlisted officers can afford to live in these areas, regardless of market forces. The city of 29 Palms is included among those areas where BAH rates are utilized. The Department of Defense estimates that the new BAH budget, which takes effect on January 1st, will see an estimated $27.9 billion paid to approximately 1 million service members. For more information about new BAH rates, see a link in this story at Z107.7fm.com. And finally, planting in the winter is a good idea in the high desert, even if the supposed extra wet rainy season has yet to arrive. Online news editor and Green Thumb, Robert Hayden, emerges from the greenhouse with this story.
Native plants are having a comeback. It's one of those easy sell ideas. It's a small investment with big payoffs. Landscaping your home with plants that probably have already lived there is an easy way to create more shade, hold soil during the murder winds, and just create natural beauty on your property. If you're listening to this on the radio, you're most likely at an altitude that'll support most plants, cactus, and other native species you can find in the national park or gardens here in the high desert. At the recent opening of the Mojave Desert Land Trust's Desert Discovery Garden, Joint Executive Director Kelly Herbenson talked about the idea of rewilding your yard, which supports native animals and insects, and the best time to put native plants in the ground.
Supposed to be a wet winter. We've had a really wet year. This is an excellent time to plant. Water is obviously the biggest limiting resource for most plants. So if you can get them in and have a nice rainy winter, they will have a way better chance of doing well in the spring.
According to the LA Times, California has had less than 2.7 inches of precipitation statewide between October 1st and December 14th, less than half the state's historical average. In that same report, they say the odds are starting to tilt in the favor of this year's El Nino actually delivering. But we're talking about the weather here. Nothing's guaranteed. Getting native plants in the ground during winter, no matter how wet it is a good way to make them survive into the hotter months. Two examples of desert gardens are the recently opened Mojave Desert Land Trust Desert Discovery Garden and the Joshua Basin Water District's Waterwise Demonstration Garden. Both are free to tour and are excellent ways to see plants you can use to rewild your yard. Visit this story on our website for links on native plants and cactus propagation, sustainably harvest native seeds at the MDLT, and a link to Mike Branning's unique garden show right here on Z107.7. Reporting for Z107.7 News, I'm Robert Hayden.
That's our local news. Hear local news 7 times a day, 7 days a week at 7, 8, 9, noon, 4, 5, and 6. If you hear news happening, let us know about it. Email us at tips@z1077fm.com. Reporting for the Morongo Basin News Leader, the award-winning Z1077 Local News, I'm Jeff Harmetz.